Now it is absolutely urgent that we pass the legislation. To the dreamers who are here, my message to you is thank you for blessing our country with your the inspiration that you are. And please take this message to your parents. Thank them for bringing you here because you help America dream again. The fact that over 80% of the American people want our dreamers to stay in America. 68%, according to one poll, believe dreamers should stay with a path to citizenship. The 3 Bs, the badges, law enforcement community supports the DREAM Act, Bibles, the people of faith being very outspoken about their support, and the business community. Today, we're here with the academic community. I'm proud to join our colleagues from California and New York to welcome leaders of the academic community who are here, and they will self-introduce because, in the interest of time, we want you to hear more from them and less from me. But again, we're all inspired by the dreamers. We are determined that this DREAM Act will be the law of the land before the year is out. We reach out to our Republican colleagues with great anticipation that what they say about supporting the dreamers will be reflected in their vote on the bill. And we thank the President for his commitment to support the DREAM Act. He's told us if it comes to his desk, he will sign it. He has also told Leader Schumer and me that he supports the DREAM Act. And that is a source of encouragement to us. Now, I yield to Mr. Durbin, Mr. Crowley, who's not here yet. So then we will go to the State University of New York Chancellor, Christina Johnson, with a great welcome and appreciation for your leadership and SUNY's role in all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Pelosi. Senators, congressmen and women, colleagues, friends. 100 years ago, my grandparents came to the United States, emigrated from Ireland through Ellis Island. And their daughter, my mother, understood that education was the way to rise them out of the grime, to quote Gracie from A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and hence make a better life for the family. The opportunity to pursue the American dream was there for my mother and is promised to those who enrolled in DACA now. And today we ask Congress to keep that promise, our promise, and protect DACA enrollees through this DREAM Act legislation. I'm here today as Kathleen and Robert's daughter and as Chancellor of the State University of New York, the largest comprehensive education system in the country, serving 1.3 million students. In New York, thanks to the leadership of Governor Cuomo, we've removed tuition as a barrier to higher education. Now we need to remove the barrier for the more than 800,000 DACA enrollees, the new American dreamers, most of whom are under the age of 25. Their parents brought them to this great nation as children. Many have completed high school education and served in our military. They are our neighbors. They're our coworkers. They are our friends and members of our families. Their contributions are enormous. It's stated that if we remove the DACA enrollees from our gross domestic product, it would cost the country hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 10 years and would impact states like California and the state of New York enormously. These individuals, like my grandparents, my mother before them, deserve the same opportunity to contribute to our country. They deserve a fair and permanent pathway to citizenship without the fear of deportation. The DREAM Act is their opportunity. I stand today with my colleagues in both the SUNY and UC systems, as well as all other institutions of higher education, and our elected officials to ask Congress to pass the DREAM Act. Thank you very much. Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Thank the Chancellor for making the effort to be here today. I want to thank Leader Pelosi and Senator Dick Durbin, all the leaders in the House and Senate, Democratic Caucus, who are fighting every day on behalf of the dreamers. We are a country of fair play. We believe in fair-mindedness, fair game. It's only fair that we treat these individuals with respect and dignity that they deserve. They are only striving to make a better life for themselves, for their families, and for their country. They are Americans. They are cultural Americans in every way but a document. We know that their efforts to educate themselves, to become even better citizens ultimately when they become citizens of the United States, actually. They're preparing for that now. They are not a security threat. They're not individuals who are here for any other purpose than to produce a better life for themselves and for their families. I want to thank Governor Cuomo. I want to thank the Chancellor. I want to thank all those in higher education who understand the value of these individuals. I had one individual from my constituency, and I hope to hear from the DACA individuals themselves here today. He came from Ecuador. Came here at 3 years of age. The only thing he remembers about Ecuador is that it had mountains. He doesn't speak Spanish. That's an actual being. It's like taking him or her and airdropping them in their country of origin and saying, now go on and make the best of your life. Americans know that is not fair. That is not fair play. And that's what we're asking for. To give these individuals that fairness, that fair play. America understands that. Dick? Senator Dick Durbin, leader of DACA in the Senate.
Thank you. I want to thank my Democratic Leader Pelosi and the leadership team and my colleagues and friends from the House for joining us. We're on a roll call. I think some of my Senate colleagues will be joining us soon. The day of reckoning is coming. The day of reckoning for 780,000 young people in America who are protected by DACA. Their fate is in the hands of this Congress, and time is running out. We need to do something and do it now on a bipartisan basis that is fair and just. We need to give to these young people who have been brought to the United States, have grown up here, have pledged allegiance to our flag, have attended our schools, and simply want the chance to earn their way to legal status, that opportunity. It's a real test of who we are. It's a test of whether this nation is fair and just, and whether this nation sees in these young people the same thing that I see. These are young people who are extraordinary. So many of them are in college today. The difference between their college experience and other kids, they get no federal assistance, no Pell Grants, no loans. They've got to work their way through school. How determined they must be to achieve that goal, and how determined we need to be to achieve that same goal here. We can't allow these young people to be taken out of school, ripped out of good lives and good opportunities because Congress cannot get its act together. At Loyola University in Chicago, Illinois, is a Stritch College of Medicine. I'm so respectful and thankful for their leadership. 5 years ago, they said, we're going to make competition for our medical school open to DACA recipients. No special slots, no quotas, nothing like that. They can compete. If they're good enough, they'll get the slots. Across America, there are 65 DACA students in medical school today, 28 at Loyola in Chicago, 28 medical students at Loyola. Why is this bill important to their medical education? Without DACA, they cannot legally work in America. If you are a medical student who cannot legally work, you cannot take up a residency which will have you working a lot of hours. They're finished. Their medical education is done if we don't get our job done here. Across the United States, there are 20,000 teachers in our schools protected by DACA. Their fate and the fate of their students is in our hands. We've got to get this together on a bipartisan basis. I'm working night and day. I thank Lindsey Graham, my Republican co-sponsor from South Carolina. I thank Jeff Flake, an original co-sponsor of the DREAM Act, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, as well as Cory Gardner of Colorado. We have the beginning of a bipartisan coalition. There's no excuse. We've got to get this job done. Thank you, Madam.
As I said, our hero, I mentioned that you've spent half your life in Congress on the DREAM Act. Smart, brilliant, effective, and ready for the Navy Bako. Navy Bako is going to be, as I said, our celebrities today, our VIPs, with all respect to the members of Congress who are here and our academic leaders, our VIPs are our dreamers. Thank you for being here.
Thank you again, guys, for all having me today and letting me tell my story. My brother and I were brought to America by our parents in 1999. We immigrated here from Albania after my parents saw that there was very little opportunity in growth for their children and no promise of higher education. It was at the age of 9, not knowing a word of English, that I began my young adult life as an undocumented youth in suburban Michigan. Having no social security number and no work authorization meant you couldn't drive, find legal work, or apply to state universities. I paid out-of-state tuition for community college where I earned my Associate of Arts degree but couldn't move forward from there. I also worked under the table at family restaurants and dry cleaners in the hopes that I would make enough money to one day further my academic career. It wasn't until the introduction of DACA that I was able to obtain a social security number and a work authorization card, which allowed me to apply, be accepted to, and graduate from Michigan State University. It wasn't until then that my brother was able to become a coder at consulting firms and teach at 10 companies. It wasn't until DACA that I felt like I existed as a human being. With my degree, I was able to move to DC, where I am now managing a showroom where we as stylists help dress and empower professional women. I'm an aspiring designer and hope to one day start my own company where I can share my experiences and make an impact where I've lived my entire life. I just urge you guys today to keep the dream of 800,000 young adults like myself alive. I want to so badly continue my life here in the U.S., contributing to the only country I've known as my home. Thank you.
I want to thank you for that presentation. We have my colleague fresh from the floor vote from the state of California. Are you ready, Dianne?
I am. Can I dispose of my equipment?
Of course. Dianne Feinstein.
Thank you. Thank you.
People use the term DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Children that are brought here through no fault of their own, and children who see this country really as the land of opportunity for them. They learn the language. Most speak it without an accent. They take education seriously. They become professionals. They serve in the military. Senator Pelosi and I and Senator Harris, who will be here shortly, Mr. Garamendi, we have a very big state. And my understanding is that this is about the University of California, the largest public institution in the world, with 230,000 students, 10 campuses, 4 university hospitals, and some very distinguished chancellors who are here today to speak. It's my understanding that approximately 4,000 DACA students are within the university. I view this bill as the most important thing we can get done now, both political parties. There's no reason not to go ahead. The president is for it. Hopefully he doesn't want an arm and a leg for it, but he understands how important this is, and we can get it done. Our leader in the Senate has been Senator Durbin, who has pounded on this for how long now, Dick?
Long time.
He doesn't want to appear ageist and say how long it is, but a long time. And so we are hoping that it can either be attached to a bill or marked up, but let's move it. And here's why. These young people have all of their data with the government. They have given, the government knows where they are, where they go to school, can check all of the above. And so it's really important that we pass this program. Let me give you one example, and then it's a problem with speaking extemporaneously. If you have something that is in your speech. Okay, let me give you one of the University of California's dreamers, Marcia Huang. She came to this country from Mexicali when she was 12. She was valedictorian of her high school. She graduated early from UC San Diego with a degree in biology. She's currently enrolled in medical school at UCLA. She's earning a double degree through the prestigious PRIME program, which trains students to serve underserved populations that don't have access to health care. In her spare time, not that she has much spare time, she has served as an interpreter at the University of San Diego's free clinic. She volunteered in a monthly health fair in Linda Vista, And that's a community comprised primarily of Latino and Asian populations. Her story is strong and incredible, but it's not unique. There are so many of these young people, and all they can do is enrich this country. So I hope that this bill will shortly pass, and I thank everybody that cares. This is really an important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Well, obviously the Californians have this worked out. Senator Kamala Harris, I'd like to introduce you and have you come up and say a few words. There are more DACA dreamers in California than any other state, and these two senators have been stalwart in their support.
Thank you. Thank you, Dick. Well, I want to thank Dick Durbin for his longstanding leadership on this issue, and Senator Schumer, who I know was here, and all of my California colleagues. Yes, California has the largest number of dreamers and DACA young people. We have an outsized stake in the outcome of this conversation, and I have, over many years, met with our dreamers, and most recently in the last 10 months, met with these young people who are terrified. They are terrified. And because I, like my colleagues, am a public face of this conversation, they approach me in all kinds of places, wherever I am, and they come to me and talk about their experience and their fears. It is often the case that they will then break down and sob almost uncontrollably because they are terrified. They are terrified. They don't know what their future will be for the next couple of weeks or months. And these are young people who are in our colleges, and we have our great educational institutions that we are very proud of in California and New York here. They are in our colleges, they are in graduate school, they are serving in the military, they are working in Fortune 100 companies, they are contributing. And they're playing by the rules. We, as the United States government, said to these young people who applied for DACA, you give us your information, give us an opportunity to vet who you are, to look into your background, the circumstances of your arrival. Who are your parents? What are you doing? Have you committed any crimes? Are you productive? We looked into their backgrounds. We asked them for their personal information, and then we told them, we will not share that information with ICE. In essence, you will not be deported if you play by the rules. And so we have hundreds of thousands of young people in our country right now who took us at our word and trusted the government of the United States that if they play by the rules, we will not share their information with ICE. And now the United States government is saying, we are not prepared to keep our word. We are not prepared to keep our commitment. And that is simply wrong. It is wrong because we should keep our word. And it is wrong because we certainly are not role modeling what we expect of the young people in our country, which is that you follow through on a commitment. You follow through on a promise. So right now we are at a moment in time where we have got to understand that this is something we cannot play politics with. When we have hundreds of thousands of young people who are terrified because we have not been able to keep our word, that tells us all we've got some work to do. And I'm very proud to stand with my colleagues and in our great educational institutions to say that we are committed and we are joined in standing with these DACA young people and standing for them in the fight to make sure that we do the right thing. And let me be clear, I will not vote for an end-of-year spending bill until we are clear about what we are going to do to protect and take care of our DACA young people in this country. And I thank all my colleagues for their leadership. Each day in the life of these young people is a very long time, and we've got to stop playing politics with their lives. We need to let them focus on what we want them to do, which is to study, which is to focus on inventing the next thing, focus on what they're prepared to do to put their lives on the line for our country in the military. Let's leave these kids alone and give them a path to citizenship, and let's do the right thing. Thank you.
Congresswoman Judy Chu.
I'm proud to stand here today with university presidents and chancellors who are committed to protecting our dreamers. I'm proud to represent California, which is an official sanctuary state. I'm proud of the University of California system, of which I'm an alumni, a UCLA graduate, which is suing the government to protect the rights of immigrants. And most of all, I'm proud of the 4,000 undocumented dreamers currently enrolled in a University of California school. As chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific Caucus, I'm here to say to our nation's dreamers that we hear you, we support you, and we will pass legislation to protect you. Dreamers come from all over the world, from places like Mexico, Central America, South Korea, the Philippines, India, and Pakistan. In fact, 40% of the dreamers in the UC system are Asian Pacific Islander. We must pass the DREAM Act because of young people like Teresa Lee, a music teacher whose family immigrated to Chicago when she was just 2 years old. Although her parents were immigrants from Korea, Teresa was born in Brazil. And like many dreamers, she didn't realize she was undocumented until one day her father told her that their family had a secret that she could never tell anyone. You see, she and her parents were undocumented, and if anyone found out, her family would be separated. Her parents would be deported, and Teresa would be deported back to Brazil while her parents would go to Korea. It wasn't until Teresa was in high school when a music teacher encouraged her to apply to college that she broke her silence. Teresa was so hysterical that she was afraid her teacher would call the police on her and reveal her status. Instead, her teacher contacted Senator Dick Durbin to see if anything could be done, and her story inspired the legislation that would become to be known as the DREAM Act, which Senator Durbin introduced in 2001. I share the story because it's not often told, but it's the story of how a dreamer came out of the shadows, and a story of how the dreamer went on to become a teacher herself, and it's a story of how a U.S. Senator drafted the original DREAM Act. And thank you, Senator Durbin, for helping Teresa Lee. Let's keep on working to make sure that we bring dreamers out of the shadows, that we give them permanent status, and that we right this wrong, enshrine DACA protections, and finally pass the DREAM Act.
Thanks, Judy. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Thank you. You should add to your story that she played in Carnegie Hall. So she's really done well for herself. I'm going to ask Kirsten Gillibrand to come up and say a word on behalf of the New York side of this story, and then we have some more folks from the universities who are going to testify as well. Kirsten.
Thank you, Senator Durbin, for your leadership, and thank you to my colleagues who are standing here with me. When President Trump announced that he wanted to end the DACA program, it was one of the most hateful and cruel decisions of his presidency. It goes against our most fundamental values as Americans, and it goes against everything that the Statue of Liberty represents. In New York alone, there are thousands of dreamers, along with their families, who are now terrified about what's going to happen to them if what President Trump wants to do takes place. And that includes college students who are going to school all over New York, including many students in the SUNY system that we are hearing about today. Our colleges and universities thrive on diversity, and that diversity will be severely harmed if our dreamers no longer feel secure enough to come to school. Dreamers are our leaders, our teachers, our innovators, our scientists. They are part of our future. Dreamers become doctors, they start businesses, they're entrepreneurs, they strengthen our economy. We have to do everything we can to protect our dreamers from being deported, and we also need to do everything we can to protect them from being targeted and marginalized. We need to stand up for our dreamers, and we just cannot give up until the president finally backs down from this awful proposal. So to everyone who is here, your commitment to serving our fellow dreamers is inspiring. I urge everyone here to fight with me to make sure that our dreamers can stay and that the DREAM Act becomes law. We can't compromise when it comes to our dreamers. If enough of us raise our voice, if enough of us are heard, we will make the difference.
Thanks, Kirsten. Lisa Dahlia is a dreamer. Want to tell us your story?
Thank you, Senator Durbin. My name is Lesia. I'm on the communications team at Forward US. I am 27 years old and learned that I was undocumented during my junior year of college when I got a letter in the mail from the Department of Homeland Security. And it was a notice to appear in immigration court, which is basically the first step in the deportation process. I was unprepared to learn that I was anything but legal because I had heard sound bites about the undocumented immigrant experience and really struggled to reconcile what I was hearing with the actual life that I was living. My family and I moved from Canada to Texas in 1996 when I was 6 years old. We came on a visa but fell out of status after bad lawyering and after an employer sponsoring us sold his business, forcing us to restart the entire application process. We played by the rules, but things went wrong. And navigating our broken immigration system has been both an expensive and emotionally exhausting process. But my parents taught me that this country is a special place, and that if I was willing to work hard, that I could achieve great things. So despite being undocumented, I studied really hard. I graduated from Ronald Reagan High School with summa cum laude honors, and I'm also a proud graduate of Northwestern University, where I earned my bachelor's degree in journalism and political science. DACA was actually announced on my college graduation day, paving the way for me to earn a work permit and deportation protections that have truly changed the trajectory of my life. DACA gave me a strong sense of purpose. It helped me achieve my professional goals by utilizing my college degree to the fullest extent. It allowed me to get a job, first in cloud computing and then as a crime reporter, and now in the immigration space where I get up every single morning fighting for the DREAM Act and fighting for my future. DACA allowed me to pay taxes. I pay sales tax, income tax, state taxes, Social Security taxes, Medicare taxes, Medicaid taxes. And today, after 5 years as a DACA recipient, I've been able to buy a home, buy a car, and pay off more than $114,000 in student loans for that Northwestern degree. I have been able to get a driver's license, which helps me fly to Texas to visit my parents and drive around in the city when I get there. But my work permit and my deportation protections will expire on May 4th, so about 6 months from now. And if Congress does not move quickly to pass a DREAM Act, then 6 months from now, I will become a priority for deportation. I will lose my job. I will lose my ability to pay rent and my mortgage. I will lose the ability to legally drive and fly on planes. I will no longer be allowed to be an American taxpayer. And I also won't be able to utilize the skills that I've developed in this country starting from when I moved here as a 6-year-old first grader more than 2 decades ago. You know, a few days ago, I actually celebrated my 21st anniversary in the United States. It is a special day for me. I celebrate it every year. It's like a birthday. My coworkers brought me some cake. It's that big of a deal. And I honor that anniversary every single year because it represents the start of my American dream. I mean, I've been in this country for more than 2 decades now, and I feel like after 21 years in this country, I feel like I am deserving of a permanent legislative solution and the certainty that the DREAM Act would provide. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Great story. I'm going to ask 2 people to come up here. Dick Blom, who's been on the Board of Regents at the University of California for 15 years, and Gary May, who is at the UC Davis campus. If you would join him, the 2 of you, I think I'm going to let you do it. Tag team here. Say a word or 2.
This isn't a major problem at the University of California, and obviously at places like SUNY, which is very similar. What I think most people don't know, this recent semester, that 30% of the Dreamers, this group that we're talking about, didn't enroll for classes. So you have a bunch of kids that are at the University of California, 10 campuses, didn't show up. It's only one reason they didn't show up. They were afraid to be deported. So you think about it. Getting in the University of California is no easy thing. UCLA turns away more students than any school in the United States. One of the things we're trying to do at the University of California is add to diversity. It has been for a long time just too white. And to the extent that we bring people in from Latin America, Asia, or what have you, Canada, that's fine too, it makes a difference. And you say, what difference does it make? Well, you've heard some examples from people here of how well they've done. If you look at Silicon Valley and you look at all the companies up and down the peninsula, and you want to see who has been very successful in making these companies go ahead in incredible ways, you'll find a great percentage of those people there went to school in the United States, but that were born elsewhere. So for what the Trump administration is trying to do here is beyond obscene. And with that, I say thank you. Gary is our newest chancellor. He came from Georgia Tech. He was a rambling wreck, but he's now a rambling wreck from Davis, and we're proud to have him there.
Thank you, Regent Blum. Distinguished members of Congress, fellow academic leaders, and members of the press, and dreamers. It's a pleasure to be here with you today representing the University of California system. As Regent Blum said, my name is Gary May. I'm the Chancellor of the University of California at Davis. I applaud the hard work of our congressional leaders to protect the dreamers. At UC Davis, they represent some of our most dedicated and inspirational students, people like Carla Ornelas, a third-year psychology and pre-med major at UC Davis. Carla's dream is to return to California's Central Valley as a bilingual family doctor to care for the health of its immigrants, many of whom are farm workers contributing to California's $45 billion agriculture industry. UC Davis graduates who were protected from deportation under DACA have blossomed with careers in medicine, law, social work, and much more. We have DACA students from across the world, including Latin America, China, and the Philippines. These students contribute to a rich diversity of cultures and perspectives that is integral to the success of our university as a global university. They are paving the future for themselves and their families so they can give back to our society. As Carla recently wrote in the Sacramento Bee, I did not come here to steal or take, but only to offer and earn. I carry the burden of my parents' sacrifices and my community's needs. I have claimed the American dream as my own. Turning our backs on Carla and other dreamers is not who we are at UC Davis. Instead, we give them the tools and support to succeed. One of my goals as Chancellor is to make our university a model institution for diversity and inclusion. Our commitment to supporting DACA students goes to the heart of who we are at UC Davis. We're guided by the University of California principles that champion equal access to higher education for students of all backgrounds. We welcome and support all students without regard to their immigration status. This isn't about bowing to political correctness. Inclusion and diversity are essential to our academic success in an increasingly global economy. If we're going to make an impact as a university, we must first open our doors to the world. More than ever, we need to prepare our students for a global economy that depends on workers who are diverse in backgrounds, fluid in cultural competencies, and possess foreign language skills. We must give the best and brightest a chance to shine, no matter where they happen to be born or how they were brought here as children. Our AB 540 Undocumented Student Center is a model of empowerment, opportunity, and equity. During this critical time, the center helps to guide our DACA students through their financial, legal, and even emotional challenges. The center provides a sense of community and solidarity. It's a show of support and humanity for these students as they seek a path to success. They deserve to pursue a college education without fear of deportation. The idea that DACA students could be deported as early as March 6th is chilling to me. In September, when the White House announced its intention to rescind the DACA program, I wrote an open letter to the campus community. I wanted to make it clear that UC Davis would never abandon our DACA students. I also called on Congress to pass bipartisan legislation that would provide a permanent solution for our students. That time must be now. We must continue to keep the American dream alive for all. Thank you. I'd like to bring to the stage Congressman Adriano Espaillat.
Thank you, Senator Durbin. And I want to congratulate both the University of California and, of course, the State University of New York and the leadership of our Governor Cuomo, for this important and historic initiative. I cut my teeth in the New York State Legislature, and one of my great accomplishments as a former undocumented resident of New York, who's now a member of Congress, was to pass and to author the in-state tuition legislation that was adopted by New York State over a decade ago. This was adopted in a bipartisan manner and signed into law by then a Republican governor over a decade ago. And what the in-state tuition law said basically was, you don't have to spend out-of-state tuition levels when you matriculate in SUNY or CUNY, you can pay in-state tuition. Therefore, you don't have to pay a 300% increase in your tuition. But you're not eligible for student loans. You're not eligible for any scholarships. So go out and work and pay for your tuition. There was one small caveat in there. It was illegal for you to go out and work because you had no documentation. When DACA came in, it allowed these students the ability to go out and work legally. Now, while I was doing this, there was a group of students right outside of CUNY that engaged in a hunger strike. And I went to visit them one day, and they were really rallying for in-state tuition, which is sort of like the entry to the DREAM Act. Well, just this year, one of those students, Cristina Jimenez of Queens College, where I attended, was granted a MacArthur Genius Award. Okay? She was granted a McCarthy Genius Award. Now, the McCarthy Genius Award, some feel, may fall right under a Nobel Peace Prize. And so this is who we're talking about. This is not just a fight for who gets the benefits, who is able to enter and access the American dream. I think it's a fight for that, but it's more than that, Senator Durbin. This is a fight for the soul of our nation. The soul, who are we as a nation? Are we heavy-handed, punitive in scope, or are we a nation of aspirations? Are we a nation of aspirations or deportation? That's what this debate is about. I think we're the former, Senator Durbin, and thank you for your leadership on this issue.
Thank you, sir. I just want to tell you, Congressman, we know Christine. We all knew she was smart. Now she's officially smart. Yes. Father Michael Sheeran is here on behalf of the Jesuit colleges and universities that have been real leaders in this. Father, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I'm the president of the Association of Jesuit Colleges and Universities, which is based here in Washington. There are 28 American Jesuit universities, including Georgetown here, small schools like Spring Hill in Mobile, Alabama, and larger ones like Loyola in Chicago, and on the West Coast, Santa Clara and Loyola Marymount, and the University of San Francisco and Seattle University. We know the dreamers because they bless all of our campuses. You might miss them because they look and speak like any other American youngster. They are excellent, well-prepared students who held their mother's hand or clung to their father's neck as they came across that border. They've done nothing wrong. Instead, they serve others. In high school ROTC, they volunteer as tutors to grade school kids, in churches, in nursing homes. They have so much to give our country, from their personal initiative to their economic impact. 10% of the members of the Senate and House are graduates of our 28 Jesuit universities. Scores more are graduates of our high schools. To those alums in particular, I speak today through those of you who are filming. To those alums, I say, we taught you about responsible citizenship. Republican or Democrat, that sense of civic responsibility is an underlying part of why you're in Congress today. You learned in school about the obligation to respect and protect the natural rights of other human beings, especially when they stand in need before you and you have the power to help. You now have the power in a way we ordinary citizens do not. The power to do justice for these students. live up to what you learned in our Jesuit schools and persuade your peers to do the same. Republican, Democrat, on this issue, be a man or woman for others. Free these DACA students to be the Americans they already are in their hearts.
Thank you. Thanks. Any questions?
Senator Durbin?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you see this issue playing out, and from the Democratic perspective, must this happen by the end of the year?
Yes.
And what is it, an omnibus issue?
There are few opportunities and many things to do before the end of this session, before Christmas. And so we are seizing any available opportunity to move the DREAM Act. We are in negotiation now, I am, and Senator Graham, with Republican senators to see if we can find the appropriate version of the DREAM Act, which will get enough Republican votes to pass the Senate. And we are in active negotiation for the last several weeks. We have a sense of urgency about this, and I will tell you that I am heartened by the fact that some of the more conservative Republican senators have stepped forward and expressed their interest in helping us reach this goal. We're not there yet, but they are good faith sitting down at the table.
So you need 12 Republicans to go on?
At least.
And how many, can you tell us how many you have?
We have 4.
No more than the additional?
Oh, I have some more, but I'm not going to tell you the whole cards yet. All right. We'll wait for the roll. Yes.
Yes, Senator, so apparently Speaker Ryan told a group of conservatives yesterday that he'd be willing to put the DACA fix into an omnibus spending bill in December. And I'm wondering if there's any talks about what preconditions must be met, if Republicans are still insisting on border security measures, the wall. What's it going to take to get it to a floor vote on either side of the Capitol?
Speaker Paul Ryan is critical to the passage of the new DACA, the new DREAM Act. Without him, we can't achieve that goal. So he has expressed his personal support in Chicago publicly a year or two ago. He has also expressed some concerns about the politics of that issue on Capitol Hill, but his most recent announcement is very encouraging, that he wants to get that done this year, and he views the last omnibus bill as a possibility. I'm not going to second guess the speaker, but I am more anxious. I want to grab the first train leaving the station that I think can help carry this bill. I hope it's before the omnibus bill, but we'll see. Having said that, you've asked, well, what do you have to bargain? Let me be open with you as I have with everyone. The Republicans who are in support of this are asking for border security measures. We are now, as of today, officially in that negotiation. There are certain things which I know cannot pass on the Democratic side. There are certain things that may not pass on the Republican side, but we're trying to see if there is a path in the center that we might be able to achieve the DREAM Act and border security in the right way.
Senator Harris mentioned that she won't vote for any spending measures unless this is resolved. Do you think that's the entire caucus feels the same way?
The sentiment for that is extremely strong in the Democratic caucus, House and Senate. I don't want to reach that point. I think it would speak well of the United States Congress if we didn't reach such an extreme position. I hope we never do. But that means that we have to, in good faith, sit down now and get this done, not wait until the last minute when threats are going back and forth. But the intensity of feeling about this is very deep. And many of us feel we couldn't, in good conscience, go home for Christmas without seeing this law passed. Okay? Yes?
And what will happen if this doesn't go through by March?
It'll be terrible. 1,400 DACA-eligible young people a day will lose their protection. 1,400 a day. And that will go on for 2 years. It's a disastrous outcome. And you've heard the stories here. These young people, many of them, are distraught, dropping out of school. They don't think there's any future anymore without DACA. And I beg them, don't give up. We're going to keep trying on this. But to think that would happen in this great country is unacceptable. Yes.
You mentioned border security. It's kind of nebulous
That's exactly right. There are many parts of border security, and no, I'm not going to be more specific. Not at this point. We need some wiggle room. We need some room to work in. But I just have to say to all of the people, and there's so many who are desperate to see this done, we have to make sure that we achieve our goal and get this done. We need Republican support for that to happen. And so we're going to have to be open to ideas and approaches which might not have been, might not have originated with Democrats, but are important to reach our goal.
Is the wall one of them?
No. Yes.
And you've also been vocal about TPS and how people, recipients from El Salvador and Honduras, they face, and Nicaragua, they face determination of their status in January in Haiti. So what are you doing for these people?
This is a desperate situation. Desperate situation. Many of the Haitians who are here under temporary protected status were victims of an earthquake which occurred years ago. And the notion that 50,000 Haitians, for example, would be returned to Haiti is totally incredible and unacceptable if you've ever been to Haiti. It is the poorest place in the Western Hemisphere. And for these 50,000 people to be dumped back on the island with no means of support would just be awful and tragic. That story is repeated over and over again, not just Haitians, Somalis, and others who are in similar positions. And my colleagues from Maryland both have come to me in the last 48 hours and said TPS is a critical part of this conversation. We've had no signal. I haven't personally had any signal from the Trump administration about this issue one way or the other. I'm hoping that even though we're kind of on a separate track with the Dreamers and DACA, that we can make sure that TPS is a priority too. As you mentioned, the deadline is passed for many of them to be deported back to their countries of origin. In many places, they have been working. They have been part of the workforce for years. It would hurt the local economy in those states, and it would certainly wreck their families to be pushed back into these circumstances.
And I believe that there are kids in these programs too, like high school students and college students as well.
I'm sure there are. There have to be. They've been here so long. I'm sure that's the case.
But in terms of TPS, what the DHS has said is that they're going to look case by case on the individual situations on the ground, but they've also made it a point to say this was only meant to be temporary. And so by asking for another extension, and even yesterday some were asking for permanent legal status, that's beyond what the TPS was meant to be. And they keep emphasizing the word temporary.
It is clearly TPS, temporary protected status, and it is clearly discretionary as to when the crisis is passed that brought them to the United States. But I think in good conscience, we have to look to what we're returning them to. In many circumstances, it may not be an earthquake-ravaged Haiti, but it's a Haiti that's so poor that people are starving to death. And to send 50,000 people back into that circumstance has to be taken into consideration. I hope the administration will be. Thanks, everybody.